What we see here is the article Google censors, shadow bans, and blacklists alternative health news. Because what you're getting here often on this channel, for example, is a lot of opinions and facts, a lot of articles, studies, simply just portraying it in its context and then adding in additional feedback, thinking outside the box for once. That's exactly what we do on there, but that you might not see very much on the mainstream media, so that's exactly what we don't do here, and maybe they don't like that so much. As it says here in quote, independent journalists and health experts are blowing the whistle, but it's become a silent one. So let's get right into the details about how that is exactly happening. This article is done by Maryam I don't know how to say her name, but she deserves the credit on this because this is a fantastic report. It's got a lot of information. I suggest checking it out for yourself and sharing it around with your communities as well. But keep in mind that this is something that is not just in the natural health field, but pretty much anyone that thinks outside the box or questions the current narrative or doesn't think in the current narrative, in line with the current narrative and what they want you to believe. So let's might include cancer cure cancer. They don't let those words sometimes circulate, and this is in the applied to alternative health is nothing less than demonic, said Zach Voorhees, 39, who worked at Google as a software engineer for 8.5 years before coming out as a whistleblower. He says, in quote, "That may seem extreme, but I've been following the happenings in the new cures that are being suppressed." So this is somebody who's giving an eyewitness account saying directly that yes, alternative health information is technically being censored, or at least not as promoted as it should be, or it's being, for example, the unrecommended. Right, and there's so much other evidence to back this up, because a lot of the time you may see that the same people who represent controversial political views are the same ones that promote such called controversial health news and health information. Right, and it's not that the information is necessarily crazy, but the media might make it seem that way, but they are giving a different perspective that you may not see if you just looked on mainstream media, for example. Mainstream media may just say this is happening, even though it's old news, and we're looking at saying, well, you know, bacon caused cancer because sodium nitrate in it. We reported that in the Natural News, for example, reported 11 years ago, and they're only talking about it now. But why haven't they been talking about it since then? You know, for example, in the vaping documentary I produced, I represent how the first part of that documentary, I talk about the early warning signs, people early warning saying that there are potentially bad ingredients, there could be things that happens. The FDA is not regulating the product. All these companies are being shadowed, this big conspiracy on the web because there's all these companies selling the same product, and yet nobody paid attention to it until people actually got hurt through experience. And that's exactly what we want to prevent here. It's getting people to learn from awareness. And so can we become aware of the censorship that is happening? Can we become aware of the things that might actually heal us or help us, at least in our efforts of seeing the bigger picture? It's not even necessary that you have to agree, but seeing the bigger picture, it's taking all the information, whether you agree or not, seeing both sides, right? Because they all exist, and they all exist for great reasoning, especially when there's a whole movement dedicated towards so-called alternative health information, right? So then you have here, in quote, "At the same time, establishment big corporate pharma websites like WebMD are monopolizing the first page of results." And that's true. You know, let's say you look up anything on Google or anything on a search engine, you're going to see, you know, WebMD, you're going to see Wikipedia, for example, even though, you know, if you really want to get deep into it, the founders of Wikipedia are like pedophiles and a whole bunch of other stuff. But you're looking at that, then people can edit it, they can malform the articles, and then they make sure, like for caramel coloring, for example, they keep re-editing the form because people keep saying, putting in there, well, it causes cancer. Then they kept taking it out, and there was just a big fight over what goes in and what goes out. But like, who can really determine that, right? We need open information, open knowledge, and that's exactly what the internet is for. But when you have censorship of these companies saying, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, is the internet really here with us, or where is it? Is it just with those who want to control us and say this is exactly what you should see? Because take a look at the video called The Golden Age of the Internet, for example, by a YouTuber named Link. This perfectly describes how the internet was different back then compared to what it is now, and now more than ever there's more censorship, there's more limited freedoms. And when I play a game, for example, which was also during the golden age of the internet, the new games rising, not just these boring old stale games that have been regurgitated in some way. I want to see freedom, because freedom allows you to customize your character, customize this, customize your gameplay, and you become more creative. You start to think outside the box naturally. But do they want you to think outside the box is the question you need to think about, right? So that's what it comes down to, frankly. It says 80% of internet users have searched for a health-related topic online, according to a recent study. So why do they do that? Why do they do that? It's because they want to seek an outside opinion. It's just that simple. They want to see, well, maybe other people know, maybe other people have experienced the same thing. Maybe, there's a whole vast amount of information. I should be able, and I could be able to find it there. But am I going to be willing to put the effort into it? Yes. But is Google going to show it to me? You think that there's no censorship, but I'm telling you, yes, there is. And this article presents the evidence as well. So it says, all the online health sites that have been negatively affected include Green Med Info, Dr. Axe, Erin Elizabeth of Health Nut News, Self-Hacked, Dr. Joseph McCullough, and Honey Colony, which is the person who wrote this, their website. So just looking at that, some of those websites I use as articles in my reports on purpose, because these guys don't get enough attention, and somebody's got to speak up about it. Somebody's got to bring noise to this. And then, let's say there's an important article from, let's say, 5 years ago. Again, if the mainstream media is not going to report on it then, and they're going to report on it later down the road, we need to remind them that this is going on. Something is happening, like superbugs is happening, and it's growing faster than cancer. We need to remind them, say, yes, superbugs is rising. We need to pay attention to this. Yes, we need to make sure we have this under control. Otherwise, it's going to explode. Who knows what would happen, right? So we need to pay attention to that. And then we need to pay attention to the censorship that is clear, because if you have censorship in place, then you can't access any information at all. So in late June 2019, Project Veritas, with the assistance of Voorhees, proved that Google is indeed manipulating search results. Project Veritas actually has video content representing this, having them caught on camera. That's what they do best, actually, is they have investigative journalists, people who actually infiltrate these places, these big corporations, for example, such as Google, such as Twitter, such as even the Hillary Clinton campaign, such as a whole bunch of places, and just looking at the corruption, looking at the deeper level, like what is going on behind the scenes, what is it that people don't know. They catch them at bars, because that's when they're drunk, that's when they spill the beans, for example, and they catch them in the prime time moments where they can record it and say, oh, look what you just said on camera, and it actually led to a lot of controversy. And you can't say that's fake news, because they're caught right on camera saying it for themselves, right? Representing their company, representing their role. So it says they're manipulating search results, Google, filtering content, and dubbing information as news based on Google's agenda, right? So what is news and what is fake news, right? If you look up natural news, for example, just on Google alone, you're going to get Wikipedia, and Wikipedia says it's fake news. If you look up InfoWars, you might get Snopes saying, oh, well, here's the debunked articles from InfoWars, like, we debunked for you. Snopes is funded by George Soros. Of course they're going to debunk what they call fake news, because George Soros is a major funder of a lot of different campaigns that want you to think certain ways. It's just that simple. The control of the mind, control of thinking, and that's exactly what government does in its very nature, in its Latin terms. But it's not just that, it's the fact that we want to be, and we just go along with it. So if you're not wanting to go along with it, and you want to change the system that be, you need to speak out about it. You need to bring awareness to this issue. So Voorhees released 950 pages that insinuate that the search engine secretly boosts or condemns content on a platform that was supposedly neutral, right? YouTube. But is it really you, or is it them tube? Is it what is it? It's communist China? Is it Israel? What is it exactly? I don't know, but they work with the ADL, they work with the SPLC to content a lot of, to censor a lot of this said content. Those are just some of the prime examples of organizations that focus on that type of thing. Right, and so it says a document titled "News Blacklist Site for Google Now singles out nearly 500 websites to be hidden from users of Google Now, an Android application that was phased out in 2016 and replaced by the Google feed." All right, so That's 500 websites to be hidden. And keep in mind, thousands and thousands of articles has been taken out of Natural News, for example, who does have slightly a cozy relationship with InfoWars because they're the most censored on the web, even though, you know, they're not really producing anything extreme. And they did try to be a little careful. Maybe they were a little bit more extreme than others. You know, depending on how extreme you are, maybe more you're going to get banned on YouTube. But also, how many truth bombs you're putting out there? How effective is the message? I mean, if you looked at InfoWars and how big they got on YouTube, for example, they got like 2 million subscribers before they got taken off. That's a lot of subscribers that, frankly, a lot of independent media organizations and channels and so forth would never even account to reaching ever within their lifetime. But it's about the impact. It's always about the impact. And I don't think they want it to see, they don't want to see certain trending. They don't want to see it in recommended feeds. They don't want to see it you know, in the search results. They don't want it seen there because they know if they can fix those algorithms, which is the coding to what appears on your page and on your screen, if they fix that, then they don't have to worry about those videos getting any views. They don't have to worry about them getting any money, and then essentially their operation is shut down. But what if it's their job? You know, some of these journalists, they make a job based on what they do. Well, their job is gone now, right? Look at journalists like Tim Pool, independent journalists, just one person, two people, maybe a whole operation, right? And these people all have families to feed. I mean, what are they going to do? This is their job. They spent maybe 20 years in it because that's what InfoWars did. And it's amazing to me because these people spent so much time doing this. And imagine, right? Thousands of videos you post on YouTube, all gone in one day. And, you know, what is YouTube's excuse? They don't really give you one. They say, well, it's banned due to terms of service, but what exactly does it mean? And there's a lot of controversy around this. Obviously, you can actually just look on YouTube itself, search, well, censorship, and boom, you get tons of stuff. But people, do they know about health censorship? That's the question, because we know war influences a lot, right? We know we spend $2 trillion on war, but what comes next? It comes the medical empire. Here comes, you know, the Obamacare and all the Medicare and the insurance and all that stuff. And so medical health news and all that has a big role in it, especially since it is going to affect your mentality as well. So it says, since World War II, the pharmaceutical industry has steadily nettled increasing profits to become the world's second largest manufacturing industry after war toys. So as I just said, that's just insane, right? So pharmaceuticals, how many people are on drugs? How many people do you know are on multiple drugs? How many people do you know are sick and don't know what to do, or depend on their doctor and only go to the doctor, and their doctor only gives them drugs because that's what they're taught to do? I mean, just looking at that alone, that's like 99% of Americans. How many people do not care about the food they're eating, so therefore they're bound to get a drug within their life, and then that's going to lead to another drug because it's a symptom and they're not treating the root cause? You know, that's just a domino chain effect that's going to happen. 99% of people, I don't want that, right? So what is it going to do? Well, hopefully some people will do research for themselves, but if they can't see the information that they want to see, or the information that could potentially wake them up and give them a whole bunch of truth bombs, like I try to do in my videos, trying to make a big, you know, impactful statement. You know, I'm about making an impact here. You know, then I don't know what to tell you. What are they going to get out of it? Probably just scripture, you know, like this is what you see, teleprompted, just told to you just like this, plain, no common sense, no critical thinking, no outside the box thinking, right? So it says, in quote, Jason Erickson, a writer for naturalblaze.com, wrote that evidently the fact that a level playing field of information, which is exactly what the internet was promised to be, is skewing toward anti-vaccination and other holistic healing must be worrying to those who rely on the financial support of big pharma and establishment medicine. Exactly. The very same people who get their advertisements from drug companies, you know, looking at YouTube, looking at Google. They even have their own TV program now and all sorts, right? And you look on TV, it's all drug commercials. Connect those dots and you'll see, well, these industries are kind of one and the same, and they do work together a lot. So maybe that's part of the reason why. So it says, consider that alternative medicine empowers the patient and that the supplement industry is $32 billion business, according to the Nutrition Business Journal. So yeah, the supplement industry is a $32 billion business, but that's not nearly as big as, you know, looking at just drugs and medications and statins and all the medications, the medical schools, the doctors, right? But alternative medicine, putting the patient first, saying, well, maybe you have that ability already to heal within you, and it's just about of optimizing that and bringing it out, and through guidance like I do in health coaching, is just making that in its work, facilitating that natural action that you have. So that's exactly how I look at it, and it's not necessarily through the use of supplements, but why are people taking supplements? To supplement something that they're not getting in their diet, maybe they should look at their diet. But why are they taking supplements? Maybe it's because they want to choose that instead of medication. Maybe they feel like they can do that. And some people, I'm sure, certainly do, but even the supplement business is not all that great. I mean, look at certain fish oils, for example, of such a low quality. Are you really getting anything out of it? In many cases, supplements are not doing anything for you, but in many cases also supplements can do great good for you, depending right on the quality, on the quantity, and all sorts of things. But looking at the bigger picture, can you see the bigger picture if a hole is taken out of the picture, right? Just a big puzzle piece of the picture. It's just taken out, because that's exactly what censorship is. So it says, here's Google's official statement. It says, in quote, autocomplete is designed to help people complete a search they were intended to do, not to suggest new types of searches to be performed. These are our best predictions of the query you are likely to continue entering. Okay, so that was that was their autocomplete and how that's supposed to be designed, right? And what autocomplete means is their search engine. So let's say you write supplements are, Hillary Clinton is, and that was a past example that they fixed too, actually. And you write anything. Trying to fill in the blank sort of deal, right? So it's a supplements are, so it's going to give you a list of words, like which one do you want to click. And what you saw in 2019 of September 1st, it was supplements are bad, supplements are useless, supplements are not regulated. So kind of a war on supplements, right? Because medications would be the only other option then, right? Because that would make sense to people. It's easy to take. You wake one a day, you're done, easy, don't have to worry about anything else. And just notice the recommendations they give you. Bad, useless, not regulated, bad for you, dangerous, scams, and then good for you, and then garbage, and then not regulated by the FDA. Okay, but then look at September 17th, they changed it. Supplements are good, supplements are bad, scams, dangerous, amazing, garbage, healthy, a waste of money, not regulated by the FDA, a waste. Okay, so it seems a little bit more real that time. So why is it that it changed, right? And it seems like, there's certain things that happened to that formed that, because people were starting to catch on, you see. People still on the internet catch on, and they still create a commotion saying what's going on here, and that's good. That's activism at work. And obviously there's activism for things that don't matter, but then there's activism for things that are promoting the natural truth in life, like the fact that everybody can express themselves freely. And not necessarily that it's good, but that's just how the internet works if you are trying to run a platform and not just control everyone's thoughts. It's clear as day when you are trying to do that, when that is your intention. And that's not my intention here. It's about, well, what is going on here? Is there actually censorship in natural health? I mean, you can decide for yourself, but look at the evidence provided here. It's just compelling. So leading the search fields of billions of users with false information. This is the founder of GreedMedInfo, one of those websites that was supposedly, banned or not put on the search engine as much. So it says Google is auto-completing those search fields with false information, topics ranging from natural health to candidates for election, based not on objective search volume data, but on an extremely biased political and socio-economic agenda, one that is jeopardizing the health and human rights of everyone on the planet. Yeah, because if someone's searching for something in particular but they can't find it, then that could be potentially dangerous, would it not? So then look here, the Project Veritas video was promptly removed by YouTube, owned by Google, and then by Vimeo. So if you thought Vimeo was a good alternative to YouTube, nope, think again. And that's why, my channel, for example, is on Brighteon. That's why it's also on BitChute. It's because, those to me seem like the best two alternatives that I can go to. as it is, what's crazy is some of the past YouTube alternatives that were like the strongest already failed. They're already gone. So it just shows how much power Google really has. And they don't just own YouTube. They own a whole bunch of other things too. Don't forget that. And they're hardwired into everyone's phones now. So, I mean, that's the first thing someone's going to go to when they want to look something up, right? Is Bing even an option? Is DuckDuckGo even an option? That's probably one of your best for keeping it, secure, private, and real. And then, look at Good Gopher. I think there's a new one called WebSeed coming out. You can look at there's just a whole bunch of different ones. There's not just one, right? But if everyone's using one, then you might have to question things, right? Because everyone's having disease. So maybe to get a better perspective on things, use different search engines, right? Get different perspectives, as I said in the beginning. So it says techno-fascism explained. So many of these acts can be classified as techno-fascist. Right? What is actual fascism? Is it actually censorship? So it says the future is now, the zombies are here, right? The zombies, people just following the herd like sheeple, but also zombies because they don't have that brain, the undead capability of just going with the flow, right? So a very similar analogy there. But the future is now, why can't we be present? What we see as zombies in our movies is sort of just a reflection of what we ourselves created, and those are the zombies. So all sickness, no health is what it seems to be. And are we questioning why people are getting sick? Is it about empowering the self-blueprint? So it says knowledge is power, and you have to keep that in mind because everything you take from the internet could be used as a form of knowledge. Right now, while information is not transformation, knowledge certainly indeed is power. It creates the power structure that we see, the occult pyramid, to which you can see some, but you can't see others, which is how the power is kept over you. Right? Take a look at the video I did called The Food World Order, and that might perfectly or help you understand that. You'll see the occult section. Occult stands for things you can't not see, things that may actually be healing. So just take a look at that. And a lot of people study the occult, and you may be suspicious of why are they doing that, and it's a deep rabbit hole to get into, but generally speaking, it's the hidden knowledge that you don't see. So a lot of the stuff might be becoming more occult related stuff that they don't want you to see. So Google is no longer an unbiased platform. They're a publisher with an agenda, and they're not only the most powerful search engine, they're also a drug company. So that's from the article here. So simply put, Google's parent company, Alphabet, which also has a whole lot of problems of its own, owns pharmaceutical subsidies. In 2013, Google founded Calico. So now we're looking into how Google is involved with the pharmaceutical companies, regardless of the advertisers. Now we're looking at like the actual funders. Follow the money is where you're going to see a lot of this mess, right? You see George Soros funds this, George Soros puts that money there, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, all that. Who is doing this with Google and health? Because we're talking about natural health, let's keep it on this topic, right? Calico's mission, which, because Google founded it, was to understand that biology controls lifespan and to treat age-related diseases. So they wanted to understand the biology that controls all these things. And then 2 years later, Alphabet founded Verily Life Sciences, which is previously Google Life Sciences. And both pharma companies are partnering with others and having babies of their own. So it's just one big pyramid scheme, as you see. So it says Verily joined forces with the European pharmaceutical giant GlaxoSmithKline, one of the world's leading vaccine manufacturers. They formed a new drug company, Galvani Bioelectronics. So then in January 2019, Business Wire reported that Mary Ellen Coe, Google's president of customer solutions, was joining the board of directors at Merck, another huge vaccine producer for sure. Because I know that one best, actually. And then it says, but the real clincher is that GV, the venture capital arm of Google's parent company, Alphabet, has also invested in Vaccitech, a company described as the future of mass vaccine production. So now we're getting a common theme here for vaccines here. And as you know, if you've been following my work on this channel and through my videos, vaccines is definitely a really big topic where there's a lot of questionable ingredients on it, and it shows right on the CDC's website. Things like formaldehyde, which are known to be toxic, and what's crazy to me is that they hid that in alcohol in the 1920s supposedly, and so it wouldn't be surprised to me that they would hide it in another thing like vaccines today. But maybe it's surprising to some people, but looking at this chain of events, seeing it as a pattern within myself and through the work that I've been doing as an independent journalist and looking at a lot of the alternative views, I see it's becoming more common sense because I see it this so often. The control of the mind, the ability to change people so easily because they're so malleable. And maybe if you build some sustainability, self-reliance, not only through the foods you eat, but the things you do in life, the information you expose yourself to, you can create that greater balance and harmony for yourself. So it says, and founded by scientists at Oxford University, Vaccitech's end goal is to develop a vaccine that would be the first in the world to fight all types of flu. Right, because flu is often the foreground for a lot of vaccines, especially by the company named Merck. It says, if all goes well, Vaccitech's shot could potentially be ready for rollout in 2023. I'm sure Bill Gates might jump on board. Who knows? The potential development, a so-called universal flu vaccine. As you know, I talked about the whole idea of one in my previous videos, right? One this, one that, one world order, one new world order, whatever. One store that you go to, one search engine, right? Google. One phone that you buy. What are your options? Android or iPhone? Like, it's very slim. One social media. What is it? Facebook? And then if you go to Instagram, oh, well, guess what? It's owned by Facebook. Do you have much of that option, or is it all just one company, one brand, one device, one simulation, if you will? And so it says a so-called universal flu vaccine that elicits immunity against parts of the virus that do not change from year to year has been described as a holy grail. And it says, in quote, the Vaccitech trial marks the first time a universal flu vaccine has progressed beyond phase 1 clinical testing, wrote The Independent. Yet, to others, a one-size-fits-all flu shot sounds like a disastrous future on several levels. As everything, right? I mean, because one size doesn't fit all. It just doesn't make sense. Take, for example, just drugs. Take, for example, foods. Pretty much anything in the universe, you can't say it applies to everybody, or at least not to the same extent, and you have to be very specific when you're talking about that. But generally speaking, everybody's different, everybody's unique, everybody's going to react different. So according to a 2018 Department of Justice report, the annual flu shot is the most dangerous vaccine in the United States. It says this invention doesn't take into account or respect biodiversity. So not everybody's system reacts to medicine in the same way. It's funny, they just repeated what I said. Not to mention that we are sovereign humans. We should be able to choose what we do with our bodies, not to be forced to subject ourselves to questionable medicine. And exactly. Most people that do question are the ones putting that question in the search engine to begin with, right? Because if they're putting something in the search engine, it's usually in the form of a question. It's usually in the form of something they don't know, but they're questioning, they're thinking about it, so they have to question it. And who are they going to ask? They're going to ask maybe, well, the whole world, perhaps, right? That would probably be a good source of information, right? But maybe it's also nature, right? And what does nature tell us? I don't think it's going to tell us to take a flu vaccine. I mean, does it tell you? Is it you stare at a lake? Does it tell you, take a flu vaccine? It's really going to help you. No, the lake is going to tell you, well, stay hydrated. You can see your reflection in the lake if the lake is clean, and you need clean, pure water. You can just learn from nature, the simplest little things. But is it just coincidence that vaccine safety has become so maligned in the media as of late? We're being divided by design. I agree with this. And it says people are being ostracized like never before for merely questioning alternative views. It's to pave the way for what is coming. Mandatory vaccines, not only for children, but for adults too. And don't be surprised, because we have things like that in California. Notice they already have laws that do things for like marijuana and not having guns in states like Pennsylvania. You can say, there's a lot of vaccine stuff now in New York. There's always new laws being passed because, again, laws are not universal either. Man-made laws, that is. And then looking at places like Nazi Germany, I mean, apparently, they were forced to do a lot of this stuff too, and maybe they take you out of your house, force you under certain procedures like that. These cases do actually exist, but you can look them up. Guess what? You can't look them up if there's censorship. So just keep that in mind, and that's why hopefully these videos do stay up there for a while, because they could have some useful little gems that maybe go missing and hopefully don't as people become more aware. But I think there is a general bigger message to see anyways, right? Like freedom, like truth, like nature. So vaccines are $1 billion business. In 2012 alone, the world's 11 top pharmaceutical companies generate $700 billion plus in profits on vaccines. Stay way, Google and friends stand to earn a lot of money from vaccinating whomever they can stick a needle into multiple times over, and letting people have access to valid questions about vaccine safety might damage their bottom line, right? Damage their business. Are they actually here to help you, or are they just a business to profit from disease? Right, so not making you too healthy, but not making you too sick, keeping you in the middle to where you can stay dependent, perhaps. These are just some questions. It's not, again, that you have to believe me. Did you know that partners from all over the world came together with a global commitment to vaccination, declaring 2010 to 2020 the decade of vaccines? Meanwhile, in January 2019, the World Health Organization, in perfect timing, stressed the importance of getting your child vaccinated to protect them and others from deadly diseases. Not doing so poses a, quote, global threat. So, them recommending, make sure you get a flu vaccine. See a commercial, get the flu vaccine. Oh, it's free. You got to get it now. Oh no, there's a new strain. Oh no, everybody's getting sick. It must have nothing to do with the immune system. But, oh, you need to vaccinate yourself because that will help your immune system, even though it's got chemicals in it that, don't really show the evidence of that. But, don't question anything, right? Because that's what censorship comes down to. It says, check please. How about the $4 billion plus paid out to those who have been affected by vaccine injuries? Question. The National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program was started as a result of a law passed in 1986, giving pharmaceutical companies total legal immunity from being sued due to injuries and deaths resulting from vaccines, according to Health Impact News. Said another way, Big Pharma can create as many shots as they want with no accountability involved. It's a liability-free market. People can't really sue them. So it sounds a lot like what we have in our agricultural business when you can't sue Monsanto, for example, when they have cross-contamination on your farm and they say, oh, well, we got to take over your farm now because it's no longer organic. Or, you have issues, so now you have to go through our legal system because you have our pesticide on your land and you didn't buy our pesticide, even though the wind just blew it onto your land, Well, is that very fair now? Is it fair that people's content is now just being taken off the web, especially when it's their job? I don't think so. It says, one health influencer I spoke to pointed out that other platforms such as Vimeo and MailChimp, which is a newsletter service, are also helping to shut down the discussion, which is why I'm actually looking for a newsletter thing to do right now. But anyways, in early July, Vimeo announced that it will no longer publish sites critical of vaccines or sites that question vaccine safety. It says Facebook, whose committee members include former Big Pharma employees, has also censored legitimate scientific inquiry and debate regarding vaccine safety. Yes, Facebook, it's more very well known as they are really big compared to a lot of the others, but YouTube is definitely up there as well. And it says, no matter what your view is on vaccines, the point I'm illustrating here is that Big Pharma's tentacles, full of suction and sway, now extend to big tech, and that prohibiting the sharing of health information, a tenet of the internet, is wrong, unless you do not believe in the First Amendment. So I've been talking about this for a while now, how we focus so often on the future of medicine being technology, but clearly it is not, actually, because people are asking questions. They're saying, well, hey, I could heal myself, and it has nothing to do with technology, does it? And so looking at a lot of the future of medicine videos I reacted to on this channel from, let's say, places like Harvard University, I can disagree with them, and that's why I created my own video as well called The Actual Future of Medicine and Health. I suggest you check that out because it's also the future of you. So it says Google is now processed and non-organic. That's exactly what it's become, right? If you start as a good idea and everyone's on board, like, wow, that's so cool, you know, you can share ideas, you can have a search engine, it brings you everywhere on the internet, that's so cool, you can search for whatever you want, that's awesome. But now they're processed, now they're organic, they're not real anymore, they're not, you know, humans, they're far from humans. In fact, the very nature took over it, right? The very nature of this whole process took over, and boom, you know, now they're technology robots of the techno-tyrannical state, I guess, that we have here. So it says, by June 2016, our online magazine and marketplace Honey Colony, whose mission is to empower you to be your own health advocate, was getting about 500,000 unique visitors a month, as you can see here in this graph, according to Google Analytics. They have a screenshot. So we were generally and organically garnering interest in offering value with solid, well-researched articles until we weren't. So you can see just all of a sudden, just a sudden downfall on the amount of views they got. So all of a sudden, you know, they were getting all these views, getting so popular, and then Google's like, nope, shut it down. Shut it down, can't hear anymore, nope, not allowed. And that's exactly how it goes. Sad. It says page 1 of a Google search to being buried on page 6. So that would be an example, right? So let's say your article would be number 1 on the Google search results, let's say a couple years ago. Now look at it, and oh, it's no longer on the first page. Sorry, it's on page 6, even though it's the most popular article, and it's getting so much traction, and it's clearly important information. We're going to bury it where you'll never see it because people barely go, you know, past page 2. Because they just want to see the information that's on page 1. They think that's all there is to see, especially if they say, oh, it's a trusted source. It's a source that's going to give me all the information that I need. And, you know, oh, medical doctors prefer it. Oh, you know, the medical establishment, I trust them. You know, they do the best for my health. But I don't think they're even questioning that, because if they did, they would actually think opposite. They wouldn't think they're in the best interest of their health. They would say, oh, well, it's a business, like I've been saying. And I think it's becoming more and more apparent as we go. And if you don't agree with that, please let me know in the comment section below. Let's open up the discussion. I do believe that there is this active derailing against what we think, just the ability to think alone, okay? Regardless of what it is, just the ability to think alone. And that's why nature is the answer. So it says, in quote, the past was erased, the erasure was forgotten, then lie became truth, said George Orwell in his book called 1984, a very popular book. They even made movies after it, and it's referenced a lot in this truth realm because it's telling. He predicted how censorship would become more apparent. And again, you saw this with nations of the past because, well, history repeats itself, but now we're seeing it on the internet, where the internet has only colonized recently, so hopefully this can start to change. But I don't know, as power becomes only more and more big, you see companies like Amazon and Google just growing. Inevitably, how big could they become? How big could they become? So, there you go. Sorry, I had to skip a part because I read the part up here, but it's a little confusing, so I just want to keep moving on. So it says, in quotes, even skipping.com will minimize your search results, wrote Mercola, whose Google search results have been topping the charts organically for years. Since these updates, Mercola's site traffic has been slashed by about 99%. That's a lot, and you'll see the same thing with people making money on YouTube, for example. They're not making nearly as much money as they used to, and it's just because what? They're cursing, or they do the littlest thing now, and it's out of terms of service. Again, even regular mainstream YouTubers, gaming YouTubers, whatever, are questioning the terms of service because they're not explicit in saying what exactly are those terms of service. Why is it that your video is being demonetized, that this channel is being banned? There's not a big explanation, right? And it's just clear as day that it's because, you know, you're causing people to think outside the box, and you have algorithms that are kind of broken, and you have staff who has a political agenda and so forth. So it's all these different aspects together, and they like to call it shadow banned, actually. So because you don't hear about it, right? So, but who decides what qualifications do Google quality checkers possess exactly? Are they more superhuman than us? Who is deciding what's harmful? It's just someone's opinion, right, of what is actually good to hear and what's not good to hear. It's just their opinion, and that's exactly what man-made laws have also become. So it says who exactly defines fake news at Google, right? And that's just what man law is actually in its very nature. But looking at this term called fake news, it's funny how they'll just call everybody in the independent media fake news just because they question the current narrative. So it's like they got this term to just throw at us, even though it's funny because everyone's just throwing it everywhere now at this point. Being that Trump started it, and now everybody's just using this term, saying fake news, fake news, fake news, and it's giving actually a reason to censor for these big companies. But they for the health field, they particularly call it pseudoscience. That's the term they like to use in particular. So it says, given this, what do we do with a search engine we've taken for granted and trusted a bit too much? The cyber realm is sadly no longer the place to look for valid information. Again, the golden age is gone. So where do you go? Well, maybe still try to find that independent alternative, especially while you still can, by the way. Journalists have witnessed information go missing before their eyes while doing research. I have noticed that too, actually, I will admit. I've been doing it since I was age 11. Says I now use different search engines to conduct research and often find opposing narratives. Exactly. That's exactly why I mentioned DuckDuckGo and search engines like Gopher. And there's even search engines inside of websites like Natural News, for example, which is a news publication. So you can look at a lot of their articles and then search for a whole bunch of articles on any topic. So once you save their website, then you're good. And it kind of acts like a sort of search engine, if you will. So what's the key here when we're talking about natural medicine is often the fact that there's no money in cures. There's no money in natural medicine. Natural medicine cannot be patented. It says 1 in every 2 Americans today suffers from a chronic illness. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and Americans pop more pills than anywhere else in the world. In 2016, over 4.5 billion prescriptions were filled, earning the pharmaceutical industry more than $200 billion. So it says, yet we're still the sickest country on the planet. Yes, and you just look at the other countries and you can see the big difference. And it says, and all of these drugs are often just adding to the problem. But I will say, America is spreading their influence to other countries for sure, because that's what we do best. And we are definitely the center of this, world government, world system of usage and manipulation. I mean, just take a look at the wars that we fight for other nations and how we have to have our fingers in every little thing, right? Kind of like what China does. But at this point, we're kind of just their tool to do that with, right? So according to a 2011 report by the Institute for Safe Medicine Practices, in that same year, drugs were associated with 2 million to 4 million people in the United States experiencing serious disability or fatal injuries, including 128,000 deaths. So not very good. I actually report this in a previous video as well. So in 2019, the United States will spend about $3.5 trillion on healthcare, in addition to $1.5 trillion loss in work and wages due to illness. And you will see even more statistics and information about this industry that we have, both agricultural and pharmaceutical practically as one, and political to some extent, now that you see this bigger agenda at hand. In the video I did called The Shocking Information and Statistics on Health. It's a big seminar. It's about around 3 hours, so do spend time on that if you are interested, because it has so much important information. So again, and this is stuff you can use lifelong, so that's why I like to give this message out impactfully and in full. So what's fascinating is the prescription medicines such as Xannies and SSRIs are a part of American culture, woven into narratives, songs, movies, and casual conversation. We've come to accept these as a part of everyday normal life, what social psychologist Eric Fromm would have described as socially patterned defect. And that's true, right? I mean, how often do you see it everywhere you go? Maybe that's part of the reason why everyone is so stuck in that system. So again, if you're trying to move away from it, maybe try going away from the system. And that would mean not using the mainstream search engines, but going to the alternative. So it says, so let's put things into perspective. Opioid crisis, antibiotic resistance epidemic, grotesque obesity stats, rising rates of metabolic syndrome, skyrocketing autoimmune conditions. This just sums up everything so perfectly. I love this article. It says, according to the New York Times, cities are even suing major drugstore chains and Walmart, contending they distributed billions of painkillers that devastated communities. Alright, so it says Gail and Noel wrote that instead of making efforts to fund disease prevention and educate the public, prevention has been abandoned altogether. Exactly. We have a treatment-based model that doesn't focus on prevention, because if it was prevention, then yes, it would be the diet, the foods that you're consuming primarily, right? Because that would prevent disease all to begin with. But that's not a business model, is it? Because again, you can't be too sick and you can't be too healthy. So curing patients isn't a sustainable business model. Since with all these facts laid out, we can safely say, both figuratively and literally, that Western medicine may not have all the answers. Well, of course, right? We need the whole world on this, especially since Eastern medicine sees things that we may not see, especially since it's more right brain oriented. And then you see Western medicine has all this technology stuff that hasn't really been here for more than like 100 years, that is more left brain dominant. So, and certainly this left brain dominant mentality is creating a lot of the conflict in the world, but mainly because actually the left brain is battling the right brain, where instead it could seek a balance, but also that's where the wars are, right there in the smack middle. So it says, it's no wonder there are so many are going elsewhere for answers, so many people going to these search engines for answers. Sectors such as nutrition, preventative medicine, personalized holistic health have grown by leaps and bounds. In 2016, alternative medicine industry revenue was estimated to be about $14 billion in the United States. And it says, of course, this industry also has its own host of issues. For sure, every industry always will. And, you know, I'm very skeptical of some practices, maybe even in the organic industry, for example, because organic doesn't necessarily mean healthy. It doesn't necessarily mean alternative. And alternative actually somewhat means ancient. So a lot of these terms are sometimes skewed anyways. But when censorship is clear in day, like this is what censorship is, is when someone's taking information off the web and doesn't want you to see it. It says, well, this can't be on it, you can't make a living based on this, you're banned completely, all your videos gone. Like, that is just ripping your whole life apart, wouldn't it? And I don't want to see that happen to anybody. I don't know. That's just empathy on my part, I believe. It says Congress, corruption, and censorship. So Big Pharma doesn't just own Google, it owns Congress too. And quote, the pharmaceutical industry pours millions of dollars into the legislative branch every single year. In 2016, they put $100 million into the elections. That's a ton of money. It says the billions of lobbying dollars Big Pharma has spent over the years and the different lobby groups involved is enough to make a woke person nauseous. End quote. With Amazon spending $4.2 million, Facebook shelling out $4.1 million, and Google chipping in $3.2 million on second quarter lobbying. This marks the first time all three companies ranked among the top 15 lobbying spenders in a single quarter, wrote Open Secrets. Now again, this article was written toward the end of 2019, so it's still super relevant to what's going on right now. And it just shows you the amount of power these companies have. I questioned how much power they have. How much power do they really have? I mean, do we know? Amazon, for example, doesn't even pay income taxes in many cases. So they have exceptions from the government. So kind of tells you they're working with the government, especially when they're getting those handouts. In a recent letter to Google and Facebook, Chairman of the House Intelligence Committee Adam Schiff wrote, quote, there is strong evidence to suggest that at least part of the source of this trend of vaccine hesitancy is the degree to which medically inaccurate information about vaccines surface on the websites where many Americans get their information. Okay, so this is somebody saying, well, many Americans are getting their information online and they're seeing inaccurate information, so it must be taken off. Well, it must be taken off. So it says this now, you know, the author of this article is asking, well, what's the strong evidence? Why not let the people decide and allow veritable independent journalists do their job, offering accessibility to independent studies? Exactly. Why not provide a different perspective? That's what this is all about. Schiff, who audaciously and wrongfully has stated that quote, there is no evidence that vaccines cause life-threatening or disabling diseases, then wrote, quote, the algorithms which power these services are not designed to distinguish quality information from misinformation or misleading information. And the consequences of that are particularly troubling for public health issues. So what he's calling for is just censorship. And that's just the example of the people we have in power, who want this censorship to happen. It's so sad to see. And what are the people doing about this? Is it the politicians getting their way, or who are getting a lot of the lobbying interest from big pharma, as we just previously mentioned, or is the people themselves, who are the ones taking the drugs to begin with, who are the ones who want this information on the internet, are they taking charge to speak up about this? Are they? So it says, yet who decides what is misinformation? Big pharma? Well, we just talked about their influence. It says big tech is taking an unequivocal stance on what constitutes health freedom and safety, blaming the openness of social media as the reason for a measles outbreak. And they'll do this very often, right? As I mentioned in my previous video. So, quote, on the one hand, they're saying that they are a platform and they are immune from being sued for the content that they host on their website. On the other hand, they're acting as a publisher in which they're determining the editorial agenda of these certain companies, and they are applying that. If people don't fall in line with their editorial agenda, then their news articles get deboosted and deranked. And if people do fall in line with their editorial agenda, it gets boosted and pushed to the top. And that's exactly what happens, and that's what Voorhees told Project Veritas, which is, again, that investigative journalist company where they do get that footage of people admitting outright that censorship is happening. So it says most people don't understand the power of Google in their lives, right? I mean, as it is, you have listening devices, you have phones, you have the internet, you have YouTube, which is actually owned by Google, and you have so many other things. It's just insane. So online encyclopedia or Google sidekick. Let's talk about the Wikipedia now. Not so long ago, Wikipedia regularly had a banner splashed on their homepage, hitting up online visitors for money to stay in business. Then Google invested $3.1 million into Wikipedia, bringing Google's total contribution to $7.5 million. So already we're starting to see some lobbying interest, aren't we? The company has also used Wikipedia articles to train machine learning algorithms, AI, as well as fight misinformation on YouTube. So now they're using Wikipedia as that add-in source of tool to crowd out the information they don't want to see. So like I do in my field with my clients, is like adding in the foods that feed you to kind of naturally get away those bad foods. They're doing it, though, for censorship. They're saying, this is the information you must see. You can't see that information. Take it away. Right? So Google now ranks Wikipedia in many searches as totally legitimate encyclopedia, even though it's an open source site that has been described as an often untrustworthy source of information. On Wikipedia, users can update entries in real time without any formal peer review or editorial process. Wikipedia co-founder Larry Sanger himself described it as a broken system. Right, so that's the co-founder, not the founder, and he described it as a broken system. So it's just funny to me that all these people in these very companies, coming out as whistleblowers, but they don't get any media attention either. Maybe that tells you something. Quote, according to Gail and Knoll, content about medical products and therapeutic regimens are penned by completely unqualified editors with no medical background. Yet Wikipedia editors state with authority that there are no proven health benefits in non-conventional and natural medical therapies. Again, they're called pseudoscience. Google's algorithms are giving better rankings to content from a bunch of anonymous, unvetted contributors over independent journalists educated in functional medicine who inspire conversation, question assumptions, challenge the status quo, and encourage curiosity. That's exactly what they're doing. They're hiring people and they're using them as slaves. And what do they want? To make you a slave to their information, their narrative. So take, for example, Dr. Joseph Mercola, an actual board-certified DO and respected author whose website predates Google. He has written hundreds of valid articles and has been an inspiration to millions. Now he writes books too, and he's always been doing that too. But now many will never know his contributions because he says, quote, Google is now manually lowering the ranking of undesirable content based on Wikipedia's assessment of the author or site. So as below is what you'll see if you do a search for Joseph Mercola, and it says go ahead, try it at home, kids. And it's true, I tried it, and it says 9 reasons to completely ignore Joseph Mercola. Why is that one of the top articles? Is it purposely trying to get your attention and say, well, you shouldn't look at the content, or you should question it, or you should be like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't trust them, especially since it's coming from sciencebasedmedicine.org. It sounds like what SciBabe does to FoodBabe. Oh, she's got SciBabe in her name, but she got awards from Monsanto. So, and she curses on her blog, and it's not professional at all. But she's way more scientific than FoodBabe. Though FoodBabe is just questioning the narrative and she's literally just taking sources directly from the CDC, directly from the FDA, directly from food manufacturers. She's doing phone calls. She's getting investigative. She's talking to the people that work behind the scenes as well. She's getting the direct information. How could you deny that? How could you say that's fake news? How could you say that's pseudoscience? How could you say that she's in it for profit, whatever, when she's clearly doing good, when people clearly love her work, when people clearly want to see more? And that's the thing, right? So people are waking up. Why, it says here, why have I been blamed for life, banned for life from PayPal, scrubbed off Kifa and GoFundMe, had the company's Facebook ads temporarily shut down on several occasions, had videos removed from YouTube, and been buried by Google? So this is the website from the author that it speaks here. And that's bizarre. All those corporations actively working in cahoots to ban this person. And take a look at what Alex Jones, what happened to him. Everybody took him off the platforms on the same day. Even Spotify, a music streaming service, took them completely off the platform. Disgusting to see at most. Says, will we stand up for our rights for health, freedom, and sovereignty, or sit back and play with our phones, oblivious that we are losing our rights and having a say in what happens to our bodies? Okay, so in quote, to silence a false opinion is wrong because knowledge arises only from the collision of truth with error. In other words, true belief becomes knowledge only by emerging victorious from the din of argument and disagreement and discussion. So saying that you need both the good side and the bad side and all perspectives to create this bigger picture that we can then call truth, the bigger perspective that we can see objectively and say, this is what it is, what could we do with this information at hand? But when they tell you what the information is, and then they tell you what to do, and they tell you literally what to do with your own body, you have to question this current narrative, this current system we live in, that must raise a lot of alarm bells. And so, I say balls. Okay, but look at my other videos. I'm trying to create that impact as well. I'm trying to get some questions. That's all I want to do, is get those thoughts out there so people can question the world around them. For me, it's nothing to do with money, but I do hope I can make money, based on truth. I really do hope I can do that. But it's about creating that impact. It's about creating that impact, the need to change. Somebody's got to do, somebody's got to step up, somebody's got to bring out this information. I get that I'm going over an article that somebody else wrote, but somebody has to bring it back to light. Somebody has to bring it up, because the mainstream media never will, right? So who's going to do it? It's going to be us. So we need to take charge, whether it comes to our own health, whether it comes to this. Notice I put the effort into this. Are you going to put the effort into your health? I'm putting this effort into this for you, right? And that's what I do with all my videos. I want to do this for you. This is what it's all about. It's all about you. So, and it's not egotistically. It's about your body. It's about your nature. It's about what is intended for life. I want to see your life succeed in the way that it is intended to succeed. So it says we must allow all speech, even defense of false claims and conspiracy theories, because it is only then that we have a chance of achieving knowledge to begin with, right? The ability to even think, the very nature of being, the very nature of being conscious, being aware. So if this message finds you, muster the courage to speak out and share. I agree. He says the revolution is underway. Quote, we have to let people know that if Google is going to censor us, let's censor them. And we can, said Voorhees. Together, we are going to confront Google. We're going to hold them to their own standards, and justice will come because we, the people, will decide that's what needs to happen. That's what will need to happen. That's what needs to happen, okay? That's what needs to happen, is people need to do that and take health into their own hands. So that's all we have here for today. I really thank you guys for watching and this really big article. Really appreciate the work done here for this article. I'm even getting some lag. Let me bring it up to the top here so I can credit the author. So thank you very much for watching. This is Nature the Answer, Cory, Edmund, Endrulat. I thank you for watching. Please support me in my efforts to bring you this alternative health news, the natural health news that you will not see on the mainstream media, as I always say in every video, because of how important it is, and hopefully now you see it's even more important. This article was written by Miriam Henine, and I really appreciate the work she does as well. Everybody in this life has this great contribution to make, and I hope to do mine. Thank you very much for watching.